Good evening, I'm Ricardo Gonsalves. The top stories: appeal denied. War Crimes Court confirms 50-year sentence on Liberia's former president. Diplomatic tension. Tonight, Indonesia warns Australia that asylum seeker policies could damage relations. And soaring death toll, more than 300 killed in Pakistan's earthquake.
From SBS, this is World News Australia.
And later in the bulletin, the Australians who beat New Zealand to win the America's Cup. The forecast: clear along the east coast, cloudy in the south and west, fine in Darwin. The former president of Liberia, Charles Taylor, is set to spend the rest of his life in prison. Tonight, a UN-backed war crimes court sitting in the Netherlands has confirmed his 50-year sentence for war crimes.
Mr. Taylor, will you please rise?
After 7 years on trial, a final verdict. Charles Taylor's appeal failed. The former Liberian president, short of living beyond 115, will spend the rest of his life behind bars.
Affirms the sentence of 50 years imprisonment imposed by the trial chamber. Orders that this judgment shall be enforced immediately.
Last year, the now 65-year-old was found guilty of supporting rebels in neighbouring Sierra Leone during the 1991 to 2002 brutal civil war. Judges found that he had supplied guns and ammunition to the Revolutionary United Front in exchange for blood diamonds. The conflict became known for its mutilations, drugged child soldiers and sex slaves. 120,000 people died.
My actions were genuine and done with one thing in mind: helping to bring peace to Sierra Leone.
But he failed to prove his innocence to the UN-backed court in The Hague. He'll go down in history as the first former head of state convicted by an international war crimes court since World War II. The prosecution had sought to increase his sentence to 80 years. But today, the trial's chamber upheld his 50-year sentence.
This final decision affirms Taylor's criminal responsibility for grave crimes.
Back in 2003, after his arrest, Charles Taylor promised Liberia that he'd return.
I leave you with these parting words: God willing, I will be back.
But it's highly likely that Charles Taylor will never step on Liberian soil again. In the coming weeks, he'll be sent to a foreign jail for life. Ashley Steele, World News Australia.
A day after the end of the siege and the first pictures emerge of the extent of the damage, the roof of the shopping centre collapsing on floors below. According to one government official, it fell after soldiers fired rocket-propelled grenades through the roof in an attempt to distract some of the gunmen and save a group of hostages. The militant group behind the attack, Al-Shabaab, claims 137 hostages died when the shopping centre collapsed, but that has been denied by the Kenyan government.
We are convinced that there will be insignificant, if any, bodies still hold up there except for the terrorists.
Adding to the confusion, an intelligence sources told the Guardian newspaper that there is evidence that hundreds of bodies are buried in the rubble. The provisional death toll stands at 67, but the Kenyan Red Cross says 71 people are still listed as missing. The ongoing search for bodies delaying the release of those already recovered, much to the distress of people like Agnes Wangui, who lost her brother.
The police are saying it is the doctor who has refused. Then the doctor is telling us it's the police who are not given the clearance. What is this?
The attack began on Saturday, but it is now clear that it had been in the planning for a long time. The Kenyan authorities investigating claims that the militants had rented a shop in the complex and stocked it with guns and ammunition.
There is a shocking failure in terms of intelligence, because we knew for a long time that this was coming. Al-Shabaab and other terrorist groups have threatened to attack Kenyans and to attack major economic hubs like Westgate and others.
After initially denying that a woman was among the attackers, possibly British-born Muslim convert Samantha Luthwaite, the Kenyan authorities say they are now investigating that possibility in light of information from survivors. Brian Thompson, World News Australia.
The southwest province, which is also struggling with a violent separatist insurgency.
The full scale of the disaster is still emerging. Entire villages were flattened, most of the victims killed when their simple mud homes collapsed. Hundreds are already known to have died, but it's feared many more are trapped under the rubble.
हमको पता नहीं था कैसे आएगा आदमी घरों में सोए थे कुछ निकाला सर कुछ पता नहीं अंदर घुस गए.
Thousands of people have been left homeless as strong aftershocks continue to shake the region. More than 300,000 people have been affected across 6 districts in Baluchistan, Pakistan's biggest province but also its remotest and most impoverished. Pakistani troops and medical staff rushed to the quake zone along with food, tents and medical supplies.
We have moved a number of search and rescue teams to the area to look for the injured and also those people who are trapped in the rubble.
But access and relief efforts have been hampered by poor roads and rough terrain. Medical facilities are scarce and rescuers are struggling to help the injured. The worst casualties have been flown by helicopter to Karachi. Amid the devastation, people are still gathering to see the new island created by the earthquake just off the coastline in the Arabian Sea.
It's an extraordinary in the sense that it doesn't happen very often. This particular area happens to be at the junction point of the 3 tectonic plates of Eurasian, Arabian and the Indian tectonic plates. And because it has happened.
A humbling reminder of the power and force of nature. Vesna Nazor, World News Australia.
Temperatures and blustery winds. The most serious outbreaks were reported on the mid-north coast near Taree and Shallow Bay, where some evacuations were reported. All emergency warnings have now been downgraded, though many fires continue to burn. A shooting rampage at a Washington naval base. The gunman is seen darting through a building, aiming the shotgun, but does not fire. 12 people were killed in the attack. The man's medical history reveals he believed he was being influenced by electromagnetic waves.
Proud of my country, really proud.
The winners might have been sailing for a US yacht club, but they were largely international. The skipper, an Australian, Jimmy Spittle, at the helm for his 2nd America's Cup victory.
It's just an incredible team standing behind me. We faced a lot of adversity, a lot of challenges. We dug ourselves a big hole.
By his side, his tactician, another Australian, Tom Slingsby, a gold medalist at the London Olympics. All up, there were 7 Australians on board. There were 7 New Zealanders also, for that matter. Only 2 Americans helped return the cup to the US. The win comes 30 years to the day since the US lost the cup for the first time in 132 years. The crew who won then gathered in Sydney today to mark the occasion.
The emotion in the room here today, 3 decades later, shows just how big a deal winning an America's Cup can be. There's also a lot of sympathy here for Team New Zealand, who had such an amazing achievement snatched out from under their noses.
Key figures from the 1983 campaign praised the Australian connection in this year's race.
They gradually got faster with the modifications they were making in these last races. It was a fantastic effort for them. But a lot of it, credit should go to the Australians that sailed on that yacht this morning.
Former Prime Minister Bob Hawke wearing his unforgettable jacket, noting the part technology also played back then.
Here was little Australia, a very, very small technological base, biggest technology base in the country in the United States, and here we'd out-techoed them. We'd out-techoed the bastards. That was marvellous.
A feat still regarded as one of the country's greatest accomplishments. Sam Eichen, World News Australia.
Northeast. Clear skies in Brisbane, Sydney and Canberra with a top of 20 degrees. Cloudy in Melbourne, Adelaide and Perth. Fine in Darwin with a top of 33. Around the world now, and there will be showers in Tahiti and Wellington, sunshine in Nadi. In Southeast Asia, storms in Singapore and Bangkok, showers in Jakarta and Denpasar. Further north, sunny in Seoul, cloudy in Shanghai and Taipei. Heading west, sunshine for Tehran, Jerusalem and Baghdad, showers in Mumbai. To Europe, fine in Paris and Warsaw, showers in Stockholm and Moscow. In Africa, clear in Casablanca, Cairo and Algiers, cloudy in Johannesburg. For South America, grey skies in Rio de Janeiro and Buenos Aires. And for North America, sunny in Denver, Chicago and sun also for Toronto.